Just give it a whack. Thanks. Okay. Please bring in the jury. Oh. Once more into the breach. Oh. Oh, it's already up there. Oh, for the rest of it. Okay. All right, that's good. Am I going to get the key sometime of the 12?
I emailed it yesterday.
To
to Jose.
Okay, thank you.
And we emailed back edits to council this morning. I didn't realize she'd already forwarded it to Jose. I didn't realize he was on that email.
Yeah.
So I just responded to Brenna this morning with some suggested.
Is that email to Jose?
I don't think I included Jose. I think I just sent it to Brenna. So
I'll look at it and I'll send it again.
to all of us.
All right. I mean, I just need some idea of what,
Sure.
informal.
And then I was going to suggest we talk about comfortable shoes.
Maybe a problem.
Sorry.
You can talk ahead. Please be seated. The record will show the presence of all jurors, counsel, and the defendant. We're back on the record, and the state can call its next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state recalls Deputy Monreal.
Come on up. You've already been sworn in once, so you're still under oath. You want to come and take the witness stand? Thank you, sir. And you're still under oath, obviously. Was there something you wanted to talk about, or does that have to do with the other thing?
The other thing.
All right. Morning. All right, this is a recall of a witness. This is perfectly permissible. Sometimes things come up, and counsel can recall a witness. So you recognize this gentleman. He's still under oath, and he'll testify again. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Hunley.
Good morning, Deputy.
Good morning.
Could you just remind the jury of your name, please?
Good morning. My name is David Monreal, last of phonetics of Monreal.
And Deputy Monreal, we're taking you first this morning because I understand you just got off duty this morning. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so I want to follow up with you with respect to some statements you indicated you took from Wanda Kelly. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And could you tell the jury, when you spoke to Wanda Kelly, when you responded to the Kelly residents, could you tell the jury what Wanda Kelly told you?
Apologies.
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor, this is proper impeachment as substantive evidence of Ms. Kelly's testimony.
All right, overruled.
It's not.
When I went over to Miss Wanda Kelly back at the residence, it was myself and Deputy Cabrera that went to speak with her. When I was speaking with her, I asked her if she had the phone number or if she could call her husband, Kelly, so we could try to locate him. After several attempts trying to call him via telephone, it was unsuccessful. At that moment, that's when I asked her what happened. She did state she observed 5 subjects through her living room window, carrying backpacks and rifles. I then asked her what she had heard. She did state that she had possibly heard 4 shots, but she couldn't remember due to being startled.
And can you tell me, did she say anything about what she observed of her husband before she heard the gunshots?
Can we just interrupt? I know this is a recall, but maybe a little bit more just the foundation as to the date,
Sure.
the date and time, because there was so many officers visiting, at various times.
Sure, Your Honor, thank you. Deputy Monreal, let's just back up a little bit. On January 30th of 2023, did you respond to the Kelly residence?
Yes, I did.
And when you were at the Kelly residence, did you meet up with other officers, other deputies, and some Border Patrol agents?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall about what time it was that you were at the Kelly residence?
I was at approximately 14, 22 hours.
And I'm sorry, what time is that?
Approximately 14:22 hours, which is 2 in the afternoon.
Okay, so you think, would it refresh your recollection if you took a look at your report for the actual time?
Yes, it would.
Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1.6. If you could take a look and let me know when you've refreshed your recollection.
Right.
Could you tell us what time you arrived at the Kelly residence?
It was at 14:47 hours, which is 2 in the afternoon, 2:47.
And is that when you arrived, or is that when you were dispatched?
That was a call when I was dispatched.
And so, do you remember where you were before you drove to the Kelly residence?
I was at the sheriff's office.
And so you had to drive from the sheriff's office to the Kelly residence, is that right?
That's correct.
And when you got to the Kelly residence, did you do a search before you went in to talk to Mrs. Kelly?
Yes, I did.
And is that what you were referring to as the cursory search when you testified earlier in this case?
Yes, I did.
So after that cursory search, you said you and Deputy Cabrera went in to speak with Mrs. Kelly to try to get a hold of Mr. Kelly, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Your Honor, is that sufficient foundation?
Thank you, yes.
So when you came into the house to talk to Mrs. Kelly after all those other things had occurred, what is it that Mrs. Kelly told you?
I spoke with Ms. Kelly. That's when she told me she had seen the 5 subjects through her living room window carrying rifles and backpacks. She also stated that she had observed her husband grab the rifle and walk outside and then started walking south.
And did she tell you what she heard after her husband went outside?
Then she stated that she heard approximately 4 shots. She could not remember due to being startled.
That's all I had for this witness, Your Honor. Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Just a little confused. Is this encounter with Miss Wanda the next day on January 31st?
No, it's not.
When you went back to the house to look for the rifle, because you're the one that knew what it looked like, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And you made contact with Wanda then, didn't you?
I did not make contact with Wanda on the 31st.
Well, do you mind looking at your page? I guess it's noted as 3. Do you have your report in front of you still?
Madam.
At the last paragraph, would you look on, it's the second page, but it says 3 on top.
Yes.
Okay. So it says that at 11 o'clock on the 31st is the paragraph above that on Tuesday, January 31st. And I'm taking it that's when you made contact, that she approached you trying to figure out how to get a hold of her husband, right?
On the 31st, that's what happened. Yes.
And so you wrote in your report your contact with Wanda before that?
Yes, what I was speaking about earlier was on the day of the 30th.
Okay. So now, the number 5 was used a lot as far as how many people were out there by Alan. Is it possible that was the reference to what he said, 5?
No,
How do you know?
so I recall.
How do
That's
you
what-
know what she was
I
thinking?
just got to let him answer the question.
Sorry. Go ahead.
That's what she told me. She saw 5 subjects through the living room window.
Okay. How about they saw 5 subjects?
No, Wanda stated she saw 5 subjects.
So when she went and told the detective 2, then she all of a sudden remembered the right number later at the police station?
I do not know what she stated to the detective.
Okay. And she clearly did not know how many gunshots she heard, right?
She did not recall, other than stating that she had heard 4, but she does not recall due to being startled.
So she really didn't know. She threw a number at you.
She threw a number at that time.
Okay. Nothing further?
Redirect.
Now I'm a little confused, so let's go back. The statements you talked about Wanda making to you, which date were those on?
Those statements were made on the 30th.
So on January 31st, during your earlier testimony, you talked about returning to the residence to assist with the second search warrant. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And when you responded on January 31st of 2023 for that second search warrant, did you have any conversations with Wanda Kelly on that day?
The only conversation I had with Wanda Kelly on that day was in her how to make contact with her husband that was currently in jail.
Okay. So nothing about the
Nothing.
statements from the day before?
Correct, nothing about the case or what was going on.
While you were out there doing your search, did you ever see any backpacks or live rifles laying around?
No, I did not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness about this testimony from any of the jurors? Very well. Seeing none, sir, you can step down. Thank you again.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You bet. And the state calls next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Agent Heredia.
Morning again. This is a recall as well. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good morning, sir, and you can have a seat. And just a reminder, as I do every witness who comes back for a second time, that you're still under oath. Yes, sir. All right, thank you, sir. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Agent Heredia.
Good morning, ma'am.
Could you just remind the jury of your full name, please?
My name is Agent Roberto, middle initial E, last name of Heredia, Heredia.
Agent Heredia, when you testified earlier in the week or last week, I'm not sure when it was, we asked you some questions about some statements that Wanda Kelly made to you. Is that right?
That is correct.
And just to recap and get us back to when those statements occurred, were you the first officer on scene that day?
That is correct.
Were you by yourself when you made that initial contact with Mrs. Kelly?
I was by myself.
And was that just after you arrived at the location?
That is correct.
Was that before any of the other officers had joined you?
That is correct.
And could you just tell us, and was that on January 30th of 2023, sometime between 2:30 and 3 o'clock?
Yes, it was.
And could you tell us what Mrs. Kelly told you when you made contact with her that day?
When I made contact with her that day, she stated that 10 to 15 minutes prior to my arrival, her husband and her had seen approximately 5 armed individuals that were carrying bundles of narcotics on the south end of their property. And she also stated that Mr. Kelly had taken off walking after the subjects.
And did she tell you which direction or point in which direction she observed her husband?
Correct. And she pointed in gestures such as the one I'm doing, direction south of her house.
And when she gestured south, did she gesture towards anything? For instance, did she gesture to the hills, to a wash, to a road? Was there anything she gestured toward?
Well, she gestured towards the direction where Mr. Kelly had taken off, which is the road up there. There's a wash, so that's the direction.
So towards the road and the wash.
Correct.
That's all I had for this witness. Oh, I'm sorry, one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
While you were out there looking around, did you ever see any rifles or backpacks laying around anywhere while you were there that day?
No, I did not.
Thank you.
Cross-examination.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Let's just get this, I don't see any rifles and backpacks in the immediate area. Rifles have value, don't they?
Value as far as what, ma'am?
They carry money value, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And a
Is it-
lot of law-abiding, but also non-law-abiding people want to get their hands on weapons, don't they?
I would imagine.
It's a commodity that people, they're commonly stolen from, is that right? Guns?
I think they're stolen. I don't know if they're commonly stolen.
Okay.
I've never investigated such things.
Okay. But you're aware that people would want them, and there are stolen guns out there. Would you agree?
I would agree, yes.
Okay. Matter of fact, if they come across the border back into Mexico, it would be a crime, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
So if you get it around the fence and into Mexico, it would be one way to avoid getting caught, possibly, correct?
Possibly, yes.
Okay. And drugs. Drugs carry value in the underground world, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it's not something that you would want to leave behind if it has value. It might make some person above you get very irritated if you lose your drugs, right?
They're not my drugs, but yes, we're trained to intercept narcotics.
Okay. But with narcotics, there's someone bigger that's selling larger amounts, and then you have, it drops down to the individual seller. But there's a chain of command that goes with that, as far as people that buy in bulk and then disperse it, correct?
Correct.
And any amount of drugs, if there's a pound of fentanyl or something, would have such a great value, it's not something you want to just leave behind. Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay, and if you knew you got it from someone, you wouldn't want to go back and answer to why you lost it, right?
Correct.
Okay, and if you did, you would want to make sure you have a great explanation how you were robbed or something, correct?
Correct.
You got to save your life, right?
Correct. I'd be speculating, but correct, yeah.
Yeah, and I know we're hypothetically right now, but this is what is actually could be out there, correct?
It could, yes.
Yes. And we have names for these organizations in Mexico where these drugs are coming from. We all have heard about it, correct?
Correct.
And it's coming over our borders, even in Nogales as we speak, potentially, correct?
Potentially, correct.
Okay. And if you take it through the main border control locations, you're subject to search. And unless it's hidden so well, it may get confiscated. Isn't that true?
That is correct.
Okay, and I'd like to think your Border Patrol have a good eye for where to look for drugs that could be hidden, correct? You've seen everything, I'm sure, right?
Correct, but we're not in charge of the ports of entry, though.
You're not, but you're aware of it.
I am aware.
Okay, it falls under the big umbrella that you're working for, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so is that, I get it, you're out more on the patrol aspect of everything, right? You're protecting the borders and within your jurisdiction, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. But there's different arms to your department, and you're aware what's happening at one point. Therefore, if they're getting busted there, what's a better place to do this than to go around the wall and walk through property? Isn't that possible?
That is possible.
There hopefully is no one there, and if the camera spots them, they can go into these ravines and get out of sight of the cameras, can't they?
They could, yes.
And so it's very hard to track these people and to stop and detain them because of the terrain, correct?
It is hard sometimes, yes.
So if I'm going to abandon some money or drugs or guns, you think I'm going to just leave it on that property?
You could or you could not, yes.
Right, well, then you better be accountable for the loss of the financial aspect of it all, correct?
I imagine you would be accountable, correct? But I'd be speculating again.
Well, and I understand. The problem with this case, and you can agree, is there's a lot of guessing to do in this case, isn't there?
Ma'am, I'm only aware of what I testified about this case. I'm not
Okay.
aware of anything else.
Okay, and that's fine. It keeps you to what you know.
Correct.
But I'm going to go to your knowledge also, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And matter of fact, for demonstrative purposes, I would like to mark this. Do I need to mark demonstrative, Judge?
No.
Okay. Can I just show the witness?
Sure.
You ever seen anything like this before?
Yes, I have.
What is this?
They're called carpet booties.
Okay, carpet booties. Why are they used?
They're used to try to confuse us, not leaving signs on the dirt.
So lack of footprints, may I publish it in front of the jurors?
Yes.
Lack of footprints can result from, could result from these shoes, correct?
Yes, but if you're trained, you will be able to pick the sign. But yes.
Right. And you have trained personnel in the Border Patrol, don't you?
Yes.
And you're aware of what this might look like?
Yes.
Okay. When you expanded your search to look for guns and drugs or money, how far did you expand it?
I never searched for drugs or money. When we did a hasty perimeter check, is that what you are referring to?
To anything, because you've been asked, did you find any? And you're saying, I wasn't looking for it.
When are you referring to the call of Mr. Kelly at the ranch that particular day?
For Mr. Kelly's
Yes.
at his home, yes.
Yes, when we did the search, I was specifically looking for Mr. Kelly, make sure he was safe or any potential armed individuals. I was not tracking the dirt, actually.
So you spread out to look at one person that might be walking on his own property?
Again, I stated we spread out to look for Mr. Kelly, look for any potential armed individuals that were an immediate danger to the area there. But I
Okay.
was not tracking actually groups or individuals at that time.
Thank you. And so, but you know that people could be hiding behind different kinds of terrain or plants or whatever, and that's what you were looking for?
Again, I was looking for the safety of Mr. Kelly, looking for any armed individuals. Yeah, if they were hiding, then
Right. That's why you spread out to look for it, right?
correct.
Okay. Unless Mr. Kelly's laying in the ground, which is possible, you were looking for him and anyone else that could have caused the one bullet, the one shot that Mr. Kelly reported hearing, correct?
Correct.
All right. And at this time, you have no knowledge that he shot up in the air later?
I had no knowledge,
Okay.
correct.
Well, I want to illustrate something else. I'm going to use the prosecutor's desk as the house, okay?
Correct.
And what you learned between Mrs. Kelly and Mr. Kelly, from what you gathered, that 5 individuals, 2 or 5 or whatever number it was, ran across their vision through their window. They were able to track it, right?
I didn't know they had looked through the window. Like I said, when I got there, she stated that she had seen 5 individuals, that they had seen 5 individuals with bundles of narcotics and long arms in their property.
Okay, well then you didn't listen for the whole story, so maybe that's what's confusing to everybody. Okay, so we have learned in this courtroom that these people came across their window view while they were in the house. Will you follow me on that much?
I am following right now, correct.
Okay. And this is the house,
Correct.
and this is one of their doors that later became the exit door, okay, to my left. And my back is to the prosecutors right now.
Okay.
And I'm also helping to make a record, okay?
Okay.
All right. And so we've learned that Mr. Kelly exited because of these 5 people that ran across the vision of their window. Okay, you following me?
I am following.
All right, the windows are of course on the house, and now
Correct.
I have turned my body looking at these people. And they're heading in the direction of this road that leads to their barn, okay?
Okay,
South,
correct,
okay. East is towards the judge, okay?
correct.
All right, directly from the house, out there, over, about, what, let's see, 50, 60, 70 yards out there.
Okay.
Over a football field down, straight east is where the body's found, okay?
Okay,
And you guys comb those areas between the barbed wires that you testified to,
Okay.
okay? But the subjects ran south. So my question is, why would Mr. Kelly shoot at someone so far out there that you might not be able to see? We'll learn that later. Versus the people that was alarming with the backpacks and the rifles that he believes the shot could have come from.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
So you don't have the whole story to know any of that part, correct?
correct.
Mrs. Kelly was in her house, wasn't she?
When I got there, she was outside her house.
Did someone bring her out by then?
I have no clue. She was outside when I first initially met with her.
Like she steps outside the door?
She was outside the door, correct.
Like she was waiting on you?
I don't know if she was waiting for law enforcement, I believe.
Okay. Was she by her door?
She was right next to her door.
Okay. So she might have seen you.
She might have seen me arrive, correct.
Okay. So she was probably pretty distraught about what's going on.
And when I first
Objection,
initially,
Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled. He can testify to his observations.
when I first met with her, she didn't seem agitated to me. She seemed calm.
She seemed calm.
Yes, ma'am.
5 people with guns just ran by. Her husband's out there, and you're saying she's calm right now?
To me, my opinion, personal opinion,
Okay.
she seemed calm. She
Pass
stated
the
that-
witness.
Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to clarify, you said you weren't out there looking for guns and backpacks, you were looking for people. But if you had seen them, would you have noted it?
Yes, I would have noted, of course.
And why is that?
Because it's important if it's part of a crime, like there are 5 armed individuals, that's a crime. I would have noted any special details. If I would have encountered guns, narcotics, yes.
And Ms. Lothorpe asked you some questions about Mr. Kelly shooting his AK-47.
Correct.
Were you aware of that at that time?
No, I was not.
And you spoke to Mr. Kelly, correct?
I did speak to Mr. Kelly.
And Mr. Kelly, did he ever tell you that he discharged his gun?
He did not tell me.
Do you recall, Ms. Lothorpe showed you these carpet booties. If you had seen sign of carpet booties, would you have noted that?
I would have noted that, but it wouldn't have been a specific concern of mine at that time. My concern was the armed individuals. So carpet booty was the last thing, and would have been the last thing in my mind.
If groups are wearing carpet booties, do they generally all have carpet booties on, or just some of them?
It depends. I've seen some with and some without, yes, like
Okay.
mixed.
Now, Ms. Lothorpe asked you to speculate about whether this indicated that these were drug traffickers. Do you recall that line of questioning?
Yes,
Is it equally likely that this could be migrants?
yes, it is.
And when you encounter people with backpacks that have drugs in them, if Border Patrol makes contact with them, what do they generally do with those backpacks?
They drop them and they run.
And can you tell me, do we have drugs coming through the ports every single day?
Like I said, I don't work at the ports, but it's a possibility they could be coming every day.
So you don't know what we have coming through the port?
I do not know exactly.
That's all I had, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, looks like we have questions for this witness from the jurors. Couple questions from the jurors. Agent Heredia, as an experienced Border Patrol agent, do migrants, and again, all these are if you know, if you have a basis on your personal knowledge or through training and experience, but Agent Heredia, as an experienced Border Patrol agent, do migrants crossing illegally typically pay all cash at the border wall, or is the transaction done differently? Example, one half paid up front and one half paid some other ways, such as Western Union wires transfers?
Members of the jury, I do not know specifically. I know there's monetary involvement. I don't know how it is paid, how the arrangements are made. That I don't have any information as to that. But I know they do pay to come to cross illegally.
Another question from the same juror. Is it typical for migrants here illegally in the desert to drink from cattle troughs in the winter when they're only 2 hours in and carrying clean water with them?
From my experience, I've seen them in the winter. I've seen them drink water from ponds or cattle ponds in the summer. You have to remember that not every individual is in the same physical fitness. You could have heavier set guys that require more water, people that are shaved that require more water, and they'll drink that water within the first 30 minutes. Again, it's my speculation, but I have seen both during winter and during summer that they drink water from those areas.
All right, question from another juror. All right, well, let me ask the juror for a little bit of clarification on this, and I don't see the juror number. Was it number 3? Did you ask him? You asked about the tracking? Yeah. All right, I thought I recognized your handwriting. All right, your question was about seeing tracks in the area. So which area are you referring to?
The area in question where the incident took place. In other words, he was the first responder.
Mm-hmm.
Border Patrol agents are trying to visualize and look for tracks or anything that does not belong there, like a.
All right, so you're talking about when he went out, when the agent
When
tested,
he was looking for,
Mr. Kelly, when he went out walking that way.
right,
All right? Does that clarify, or do you want to talk some more?
Yes, but could he refresh where that, I'm sorry, I apologize. Can he refresh where that location
All right.
was that he was at?
Sure, well, and you can cover this,
Yes, I could ask.
parties can cover this if they wish to. Okay, thank you. So we'll ask the question. When you were doing what you did and looking for Mr. Kelly and walking through this area, as an experienced Border Patrol agent, did you see any tracks of the 5 people around this area, whether they were, crossers, smugglers, or possible thieves? Any tracks at all?
I did not.
Now, I think there's another question from the same jurors. Did the Border Patrol surveillance cameras detect 5 people in the area about the time of the incident? Foundationally, have you ever reviewed the results of the camera recordings that Border Patrol took at the time?
No, I have not, Your Honor.
All right, so juror number 3, when we were on the headsets, I was informed by the parties that the state does intend to call as a witness the Border Patrol person who operated the cameras, and they might have more information about that. Okay. So he never saw the result of the camera. This witness never saw the results of the surveillance cameras. So,
I don't mean to be rude, Your Honor, but it is my understanding.
well, I have to stop you. I'm sorry. So we can't have you kind of give information that would be like testimonial. So, your question will be, this particular question, I think, will be answered or addressed by another state witness that's going to be called. And then you can ask those questions again at that time. Very well. Appreciate your understanding. All right, I'll give these, I don't know what that is. We'll give these questions to the clerk, and we can have follow-up questions to the jurors' questions of this witness. We'll start with the state.
Agent Heredia, can you just remind the jury what parts of the property you walked when you initially arrived?
Yes, is there an ability to put up a map so I can
Sure.
show them?
Can you turn off my screen for a minute for the jury? I'm showing you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 115. Could you just show the jury where you initially, if I remember your testimony from earlier, you indicated you did a cursory search around the house looking for danger, is that right?
Correct. All of us did a hasty perimeter search, correct?
So could you just show the jury briefly where that area was that you looked?
Yes, the particular area where I personally looked with my partner was around this area. We never made it to the east side of the house. I'm going to draw a circle. That's the area, immediate area that was searched in conjunction with sheriffs. I don't know particularly or exactly where each sheriff went, but we kind of saw him branch out this way. We branched out in this direction, kind of bushwhacked, and then ended up here where we met Mr. Kelly, somewhere there on the road.
And when you did that initial perimeter search, did you see any foot sign of 5 individuals?
No, I did not.
When you headed south and you bushwhacked and you crossed that wash and you crossed that other area up to the second pump house, did you see any sign of 5 individuals?
No, I did not.
That's all I had for this witness. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, so when you first were just checking immediately close to the house, you were not on the east side of the house. That's what you just said, correct?
Correct.
But you did contribute to this fanning out cursory search, as you worded it. And there are, let's go by, this is not a close enough photo to really get a feel for it. Do you remember the barbed wire fences on the property that separate the house from the paddock to the extra area that leads into the wash?
I know there's some fences there. I don't know exact location of those fences. I don't remember.
So you never had to go around or through or over a barbed wire fence in your search?
If I did, I went over a barbed wire fence. I didn't.
You don't
go around.
know? What do you mean?
If I did go through a barbed wire fence, I went over it. I didn't go around it.
Do you know how high up it is?
I know how high barbed wire fences are.
Okay, well, I'm not sure how you managed to go over it. Okay, so my question is, and you said if I did, so you don't recall going through any fencing?
I could have, or I could have not. I do not remember that, yes.
So perhaps you were on the side of the house that had nothing to do with these activities. Is that possible?
Again, I don't know where the activities took place in relation to the house.
Okay.
I don't.
Well, let's go to the east side, on the other, according to testimony we've heard, on the other side of the first barbed wire fence,
Okay.
running southward in the paddock.
Okay, can you point out the direction?
Well, you're not on
of
the
the-
east side of this at all, are you?
No, I'm not on the east side. No, correct.
Okay, so you aren't there where the crime scenes are potentially located. Is that possible?
Again, I do not know where the crime scene is or where the body was found, so I do not know.
Okay. And there's actually, the terrain is very sandy, isn't it?
It's sandy down in the wash. It is.
And it's kind of dirt and sandy on top, right? Mixed with this grass, straw-like foliage that's on the ground, correct?
Again, there's grass and the sand is on the wash parts.
But
Yeah,
we're
the sand.
talking about that straw-like grass, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'm sure there's a name for it. And you're more on the south side of the house.
Correct.
So if the 5 subjects ran on the inside, in the paddock, in between the 2 fence lines of the barbed wire, and closer to the barbed wire that's closest to the house, you probably weren't even there in that area, were you?
Probably not.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Sir, first I just want to clarify, the circle you drew with the arrows pointing out, just to clarify, who are you indicating did those searches?
It was, so I'm going to put an X. Correct.
Do you want me to just clear that for you?
Yes, please. So Border Patrol, my partner and I, were kind of responsible for this area. Sheriff's Department officers kind of fanned out in different directions. We only searched kind of like this area, and then, as stated earlier, we bushwhacked, and met Mr. Kelly somewhere over here.
So 2 questions about that.
Yes.
First question, do you know exactly where the deputies searched and in which directions they fanned out?
I have no idea.
So you saw them, but you didn't, you know they were in that direction, but that's all you know?
Correct.
And then, when you say you headed south, is that the direction Mrs. Kelly pointed that she said that's where the individuals went and her husband followed them?
Correct.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Any other questions for this witness from any members of the jury? Very well. Seeing none, thank you again for coming back, sir.
Thank you, Your
Step
Honor.
down and you're excused. State can call us next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Deputy Castaneda. Again, this is a recall.
Morning. Come on up. Yes, sir. And just to remind you, as I remind all witnesses, you're still under oath, right?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. You can go ahead, Ms. Holman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Deputy. Would you please remind the jury of your full name?
Good morning. My full name is Deputy Cristobal Castaneda, Batch 144.
Deputy Castaneda, I want to talk about some testimony, something that we didn't talk about last time, but some testimony related to what we talked about before. So just to sort of orient us on what time I want to talk about, I understand that you arrived at the Kelly residence in the early afternoon. Is that correct?
Correct.
And when you arrived at the Kelly residence, you met with some other deputies and some Border Patrol agents, correct?
Correct.
And after that, you did sort of a cursory search around the house?
Yes.
After you did that cursory search, what other deputy were you with
After
after you did your cursory search?
we went back to the house, or
Correct. When you went back to the house, who was with you?
Sergeant Garcia?
Were you with Deputy Monreal and Deputy Cabrera at all at that time, or was it just you and Sergeant Garcia?
At the residence, it was just myself and Sergeant Garcia.
And when you and Sergeant Garcia went to the residence, did you talk to Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
And when you talked to Mrs. Kelly, could you tell the jury what Mrs. Kelly told you?
Yes. Miss Kelly told me that she was sitting by at the living room, and that she observed approximately 5 subjects running south through the living room window.
What did she tell you she observed of those 5 subjects when she saw them running?
That they were carrying backpacks and rifles.
Did you ask her if they were all carrying rifles?
Yes.
And how did she respond?
She said no.
What specifically did she say? So you asked her, were they all carrying rifles, and she said no?
Correct.
And that was it?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ask her if she heard any gunshots?
I don't recall.
Would it refresh your recollection if you looked at your report?
Yes.
Show me what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1. Take a look and see if that refreshes your recollection. Did you refresh your recollection?
Yes.
And could you tell me, did Mrs. Kelly tell you whether she heard any shots?
Yes, she did.
What specifically did she tell you?
She told me that she had heard shots.
And where did she tell you she heard them?
She didn't tell me where.
Could you take a look at your report and see if that refreshes your recollection?
Well, maybe ask another question. Where,
Sure.
is your question where was she, or where did she hear the shots coming from? Or what?
Where did she hear the shots coming from? And if you need to refresh your recollection, just let us know.
Okay, thank you. I will. She did. She told me that she heard shots outside.
Did she tell you how many shots, and did she say anything else, or did you make any other observations of her when she was telling you about the shots she heard outside?
She appeared to be a bit confused at the time to me.
When y'all were out at the Kelly residence and you said you did some searching of the property, is that right?
Correct.
Did you ever observe any backpacks just thrown to the side?
No.
Did you see any backpacks at all while you
No.
were out there?
No.
Did you see any drugs laying around anywhere?
No.
Did you see any rifles laying around anywhere?
No.
While you were searching, did you see any signs of a large group, maybe 5 people passing through?
No.
That's all I had for this witness.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Judge. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. This conversation that you had with Wanda was not recorded, correct?
Correct.
And you were with Deputy or Sergeant Garcia at the time, correct?
Correct.
And I remember we looked at both your report and her report, right?
Correct.
And they were not exactly the same, is that right?
I haven't
Objection,
looked.
Your Honor.
Well, it's just a yes or no question at this time. It's a question that calls for yes or no answer.
They were not exactly the same, those two reports, correct?
Per your information.
Well, and you actually looked at that report when you testified here previously, correct?
No.
You looked at Deputy or Sergeant Garcia's report, right?
No.
Would it help to take a look at her report?
Yes.
Give me one moment. Can we just put that so the witness can see? So I am showing you Deputy Garcia's report. Does that look like her report? Do you want me to scroll up?
Yes, please.
Sorry.
And do we have an exhibit number, counsel?
That would be Defense Exhibit D. So that's Deputy Garcia's report, correct?
Yes, Sergeant Garcia.
Sergeant, I'm sorry. I keep
Okay.
doing that. It's not intentional. So I'm just going to scroll down to page 2. Do you see that part that's highlighted there?
Yes.
And do you see where it reports that Mrs. Kelly states she never heard gunshots?
I do.
And that's different from your recollection of this conversation that you had with Mrs. Kelly, correct?
It is different.
You recall that she stated she did hear gunshots, right?
Yes.
And so the two of you who have this conversation with Mrs. Kelly You hear the same thing from Mrs. Kelly, right?
I heard what she was telling me.
But you both document it differently, correct?
Correct.
And obviously, if this conversation were recorded, then we would know what was correct, right?
Correct.
You also state that Mrs. Kelly seems confused, right?
Yes.
Why did you describe her as being confused?
Her demeanor while she was talking to me, she appeared. It's kind of hard to explain. She seemed confused when she was giving me her answers.
Why do you say that? Why do you use that word? Just can you describe what she was doing that prompted you to describe that as being confused?
She was standing right in front of me. She looked a bit confused, distressed. She was looking to the sides while she was giving the answers.
So fair to say you used the word distressed, right?
Yes.
Agitated,
Yes.
maybe scared?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Whenever somebody's in that kind of state where they seem confused, it's helpful to do some follow-up questioning with them. Is that right?
I don't think I understand.
Would it be helpful to try to bring some clarity to her statement?
Yes.
And would it be helpful for you to maybe say to her, let's take this one step at a time, show me where you were when you first saw people, right? That might be helpful, right?
Could be.
Did you do that?
No.
And it might be helpful to say, okay, point to me where specifically you saw them. We're looking out your windows, show me the area that you saw these people, right? That might be helpful, right?
It could be.
But you didn't do that either, right?
No.
And so now we're just left with your recollection of her statements when she was in a confused and agitated state, right?
Correct.
I don't have anything else, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Deputy Castaneda, these were the witnesses you had that day, correct?
Yes.
After they gave you the information they gave you, did you do the follow-up you could do based on what you had?
Yes.
Objection leading.
Sustain.
Was there any other follow-up you could do based on what the witnesses told you that day?
In reference,
Like, was there anything else you could do to determine whether a crime had occurred on the Kelly residence that day based on the information you had from the Kellys?
no.
If the Kellys had told you that Mr. Kelly fired his AK-47 multiple times, would that have changed what you did?
Yes.
That's all I had, Your Honor.
Any more questions for this witness from any of the members of the jury? Seeing none, thank you again, sir. You can step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The state can call its next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Liz Huerta.
What was that again?
Liz Huerta,
Huerta?
Huerta.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you. If you please come over here to the witness stand and have a seat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please tell the jury your name and your occupation?
My name is Elizabeth Huerta, and I am a dispatch supervisor for the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office.
Can you tell the jury how long you've worked for the Sheriff's Department?
A total of 6 years?
As the dispatch supervisor, is one of your duties as the custodian of records for the dispatch recordings?
Yes.
Did you provide a thumb drive with the dispatch recordings related to the George Allen Kelly case to the county attorney's office?
Yes.
And did those dispatch recordings include a call from a dispatcher to Mr. Kelly on January 30th at 5:58 p.m.?
Yes.
And did you listen to a CD provided by the county attorney's office to determine whether that was an accurate recording of that call with Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
I'm showing you what have been marked as States Exhibits 21 and 56. Do you recognize those two documents?
Yes.
Starting with Exhibit 56, could you tell us what that is?
It's a verbatim CD that includes recordings from the call.
Was that the call we just described between the dispatcher and Mr. Kelly on
Yes.
January 30th at 5:58 p.m.?
Yes.
And was that the call in its entirety according to the records that you have?
Yes.
Did you recognize one of the voices on the recording?
Yes.
And who was the voice?
Ivana Cañas?
And was she the dispatcher at the time?
Yes.
You're going to move for admission of Exhibit 56.
No objection.
56 is admitted.
Did you also take a look at Exhibit 21?
Yes.
And is that the transcript of that 911 call?
Yes.
And did that transcript appear to be accurate
Yes.
based on the recording you listened to?
Yes.
You're going to move for admission of States Exhibit 21.
Can I see it?
Well, transcripts are usually not received or admitted in evidence. The evidence is the CD.
That's fine,
And the
Your Honor.
recording.
We'll just distribute the transcript when we play it for the jury. But I just want to make sure it's accurate.
All right, so we have the testimony about the transcript and its accuracy. It's not admitted, but it can be used for demonstrative purposes. And when you use it, I'll give another instruction to the jury.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're going to play that with a different witness.
Okay.
Thank you. That's
All
all I
right,
have
so-
for this witness.
Oh, okay, so obviously there's a recording. It's been admitted as Exhibit 56. Exhibit 21 is a transcript. Apparently that's going to be played through another witness, so you will hear that. The evidence, when we have a recording, is always the recording itself. The transcript is another one of these demonstrative exhibits. So just in case I forget to give this instruction to you at the time, when you hear the recording, you'll have a transcript. If what you hear on the recording is different from what's on the transcript, the recording is the evidence, and that's what should control your recollection of the evidence. Okay, and that's true of any recording and any transcript. Okay, you said that's all the questions you had of the witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. And cross-examination?
Okay, let's go back to what you do in this department. What is your job?
I'm a dispatch supervisor, so I supervise, I should be supervising 10 dispatchers. Currently, I supervise 8.
Do you actually also participate in calls?
Can you repeat the question?
Do you also participate in taking in calls?
Yes.
Okay. And were you working on this date,
Yes.
January 30th, 23?
Yes.
Okay. And what was your shift?
I worked I believe 6 to 18 that day.
6 p.m.?
$1,800. 6 in the morning. to
6 in the morning, oh,
1800.
600. To what?
$1,800.
Okay, so you have long days.
At the time I did, yes.
All right. So did part of this call roll onto someone else's shift?
Yes.
Okay. Were you there aware of the 2 times that there was a dispatch?
Can you repeat the question?
Were you aware of 2 dispatches as a result of a call at the same address?
Yes.
Okay. Now, explain for jurors how calls come in. If it's a 911 call, how does it come in? And who takes it, and then what happens to it from there?
A 911 call comes in through our next generation Vesta system, and there is no protocol on if someone's just taking 911s. It's whoever takes the call, whoever's able to get to it first.
Okay. So you answer a call. Do you also contact the officers to dispatch them out to the scene of the call? Or who does that?
Yes, normally we dispatch the call on the radio.
How do you take a call? Let's say you're on like a phone line, right? Of some sort, a headset maybe. What do you have?
We have a headset.
Okay, so you get an incoming call and pretend that you're the first one to take it. So you pick up on that caller. You determine that they need an officer at their location. Do you actually type in, or how do you get the call to an officer if you're talking with the person on the phone?
We take the call information in our CAD system. We add the call. The deputy as well has a CAD system. They're able to view what we input, and then we give it on the radio.
Do you do that while you're on the phone with someone, or do you tell them to hold on, or is it go to another person?
It depends on the situation of the call.
Well, give me an idea what's the majority of the time. A call comes in, you're on the phone, I'm a caller, I'm upset, I'm trying to give you a description of someone that just assaulted me and how they're running and which direction. Now I'm following them. How do you communicate to your deputies the location, the descriptions? How is that happening while you're talking to me?
We have a dispatcher on the call. There should be another dispatcher listening to that call to assist with putting out information on the radio to the deputies.
Is that person called a different name as far as job task, or that they're just the same person like you? Take away your supervisory role, okay? But if you were taking in the call, automatically someone else has to join your call?
They don't have to, but that's in our dispatch center. We work as a team, and that's what we do. If we're not on another call, we'll listen into someone else's call, see if it's an emergency call, and verify if we have to start helping with radio traffic.
On this date, on this call, this was an emergency call. We got a shooter, correct? That's high priority in it?
It was unknown if there was a shooter.
Well, wait, the call that you received was not directly from a 911, correct? It came from Border Patrol, right?
Yes.
And then Border Patrol says there was a shot heard and there might be shooting back or something to that, whatever the communication was. Isn't that a priority call? We got a possible shooter going on. You doubting it?
No.
Okay, it's not your job to doubt it, is it?
No.
All right, you're not law enforcement, are you?
No.
Okay. All right, I'm not trying to make this too complicated, but I'm now you got a call where possible shots are heard. Is that a priority call?
Yes.
Okay. Now, and you're saying you just happen to have a partner listening to this call at the same time? 2 people are listening? Or was everybody busy?
I'm sorry, which call are you referring to?
Which call would you like to talk about? Let's start in order. How about the first one?
That one was priority.
Okay. So someone recognized that a shot, well, you better take it serious, right?
Yes.
Okay. And who took the call in?
The first call was taken by Javier Tintos.
Okay. And who assisted that call?
I was training him, so I was listening into that call.
So you were on listening to the call?
Yes.
Okay. So we have learned that that somehow from dispatch, a miscommunication was sent out, and I'm noting it on your call sheets, okay? Have you seen your call sheets?
I have not.
Okay. You do have them, page 3?
Which call sheet are you referring to?
The one at, let's talk about the one at 21:21 and 46 seconds.
Your Honor, and I'm not sure what the witnesses are referring to. I'm not sure what counsel's referring to, and if the witness has it.
All right, it's time to take our mid-morning break. That way, counsel and witness might be able to organize their thoughts a little bit better. We'll give them an opportunity to do that. We'll take our mid-morning break. It's 9:45. We'll take a 30-minute break, and we'll be back at 10:15.
Please rise before.
Thank you, and we can bring in the jurors. Feels colder. Going yesterday. You trying to do that? It's so quiet. Have to really listen. Yeah. How you doing, Isaac? You all right? Everything good? You see how Ms. Hunley fixed her computer? She unplugged it, plugged it back in.
It works.
Yeah.
We drive.
Thank you. Everyone, please have a seat. The record will show the presence of all the jurors, counsel, and the defendant, and we'll have the witness come back on the witness stand. Right. All right. We were still in cross-examination. Is that correct?
Yes, I just barely started. Thank
Go
you. Okay, I have put you on your desk a stapled packet that, for reference for the court, is marked as defense JJ. Can you identify this? Are these your call sheets for this case?
And Your Honor, I haven't seen this yet, so I'd like to take a look at it as well.
Do you want to step up, or?
Thank you.
Sure.
Can you identify defense JJ?
It looks like they're missing a page, so I don't know if the witness might need the page that's missing, but it does look like it's missing a page.
This is the call sheets, is that correct? Can you speak into the mic, please?
I don't think it's on.
Yes, these are call sheets.
Okay, and just take a look at them, at each page, review it. You know how to read these, right?
Yes.
Let me know when you're done.
I'm done.
Okay. And do you recognize these from the incident that was started on January 30th at the location that we're here before this court on?
I recognize two
To what?
of the call cards.
Okay, is when you print out, these are computer generated, correct?
Yes.
So you can't alter them, correct? It just registers the calls as they come in and go out, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you title this, the county here calls it call detail report. I'm going to just abbreviate that to call sheets, okay? Are we talking about the same thing now?
Yes.
And as you go through this, I mean, you're going to pick up other calls, but you do see the calls to Mr. Kelly's residence, correct? And you were aware of those calls, right?
Yes.
And you're the supervisor and was overseeing this in a lot of ways, correct?
Overseeing the call cards,
Your call department, what was going on?
I oversaw until the end of my shift.
Yes. And you said you left at what time?
$1,800.
Okay. And so you said you were aware of both incidences, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so would this be a call sheet or call detail report dealing with these incoming and outgoing calls as they're dispatched, correct?
Yes.
All right, and this accurately depicts, you can't control it, right? This is computer generated, right?
Yes.
And you can say that this is the call sheet, as I call it, for this incident, correct?
2 of them, yes.
What's 2 mean?
You have a third call and it is missing the first page. That
Where's the
has-
third call? Let me come up.
This is page 2. It's missing the first page that has the information. Yes, this is a different one. Yeah. It's part of whatever's missing on here.
Just a minute, Your Honor.
You can step up if you want.
Sure, Judge, thank you.
I was just given these by the state, so I'm just trying to make this record as clean as possible. Sorry, take these full off? It's not this call, right? Is it this call?
I can't fully confirm. The first page has the address.
This is how I got them in your records, so I'm just trying to. Do you happen to have it easily to get to? Okay. And my question, may we just have we need to get this straightened out. I'm just taking these reports as I get them, so they want me to go look for page 1 of something that they provided, so I will be.
All right, let me,
take a minute.
I understand. Do you have another witness? All right, why don't we, instead of taking a break, trying to figure this out, if it's all right with you, why don't we have the witness step down, have the witness recalled when we're able to straighten this.
If it has something to do with the calls, though, I would prefer to start with this witness. I don't know who they're bringing. Okay.
Does that sound all right?
So if we could do this at lunch, that'd be fine.
Is that all right? All
I
right,
don't know that I have anything different, but they don't.
I understand. Well, it'll give you time to figure it out during a break instead of during trial time. All right, well, don't worry about it. You're not doing anything wrong. But we just have we're not sure who's got what paperwork, so we're going to get that straightened out, and we'll have to recall you, okay? So it'll probably be after the noon break. Does that sound about right, after the noon break?
Sure, Your Honor. As soon as we're done with Detective Barba, I think, if that's okay with the court, or we can.
Well,
recall
you're
her
going to
in
need
the
some
middle.
time to figure out what's missing and what's not missing. So if you'd step down and stay in touch with this officer here, and he'll make sure you're ready to go when you go. Okay? All right, good enough. So this witness is stepping down, and she'll be subject to recall when we straighten that matter out. You can call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Detective Barba.
are about to give in the matter before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Thank you, sir. If you come over to the witness stand and have a seat, please. Good morning.
Can I take a seat?
Sure.
Morning, Your Honor.
Morning, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. My name is Monreal Barba. My last name is spelled B-A-R-B-A.
And Detective Barba, could you please tell the jury just a little bit what you do for a living?
Yes, ma'am. I'm currently assigned to the Criminal Investigations Division. I'm a detective with the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office. I was hired by the Sheriff's Office in October of 2018. That same month, I attended the Southern Arizona Law Enforcement Training Center in Tucson. It's they call it SELETSI. It's the police academy. I graduated the SELETSI Academy in March of 2019, and then after my graduation, I began a FTO process that was 12 weeks long. That ended approximately in June of 2019. And upon completion of my FTO, I was assigned to the patrol division.
And after you were assigned to patrol, were you subsequently promoted?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your promotion?
Yes, ma'am. So in January of 2023, I was fortunate to be promoted to the rank of corporal, and that was when I was assigned to the Criminal Investigations Division.
And were you also assigned, when were you assigned as a detective? Was that at the same time?
Correct.
So you were promoted to corporal and assigned as a detective in January of 23.
Yes, that's correct.
When in January of 23?
January 7th of 2023.
And when you started in detectives, can you tell me, on January 30th of 2023, were you on call?
Yes, ma'am. I was the on-call investigator for that week. We rotate on-call responsibilities, which essentially means that after hours, if a call comes that needs criminal investigations assistance, the on-call investigator will get that call and he'll determine if we have to go out and investigate or see how we can assist the patrol division. And to answer your question, yes, I was the on-call investigator for that day.
And can you tell me, on January 30th of 2023, did you get a call involving the George Allen Kelly case?
Yes.
What time were you called regarding this case?
I was called at approximately 6 in the afternoon.
When you received the call, what did you do?
So I received a call from Sergeant Garcia. She briefed me on the incident. I terminated the phone call with Sergeant Garcia, and then I proceeded my chain of command and called my sergeant, which was or is Sergeant Flores. I relayed the same information to him, and he began to delegate responsibilities.
And what was, normally if you're the on-call detective, are you the lead detective?
Yes.
Did the sergeant determine that might not be appropriate in this particular situation?
Yes. So on this particular situation, I was 2 weeks into my new assignment, brand new detective. I had not yet attended a detective school. My investigation skills up to that point were the same as patrol. Detectives receive additional investigation skills, which allow us to investigate further. However, I hadn't received that training the day I received the call. So Sergeant Flores delegated responsibilities as to who's going to be the lead detective for the case.
And who did he determine would be lead?
Detective Ainsa.
And what was your capacity during this investigation with Detective Ainsa?
I shadowed him throughout the investigation, shadowed and assisted.
Do you recall what the first thing you did regarding this investigation was on January 30th of 2023?
Yeah, so right after I terminated the phone call with my sergeant, Sergeant Flores. He instructed me to go to the office and wait for Detective Ainsa and wait for further instruction. Upon my arrival to the office, Detective Ainsa began working on a residential search warrant, which I shadowed him. I was essentially over his shoulder watching him do the search warrant for the house.
And what's the next thing y'all did?
The next thing we did was we interviewed Mr. Kelly, and then we also interviewed Ms. Kelly.
And were you present for both of those interviews?
I was present for the interview for Mr. Kelly, and I was present with Ms. Kelly for the beginning, but then I had to step out.
You talked about getting a search warrant. Was that search warrant eventually authorized by a judge?
Yes, ma'am.
And after that search warrant was authorized, could you tell the jury what you did?
So after the search warrant was authorized, we went over to the house and we served the search warrant. And my role in that search warrant was to search the house. So
Let me stop you for a second.
Yes.
What time did you arrive at the residence to serve that first search warrant?
It was after midnight. I would say approximately at 1 in the morning, the following day.
So would that be January 31st of
Correct.
2023?
Correct.
And would your report refresh your recollection as to the time?
Yes, ma'am.
Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1.10. Can you take a look and see if that refreshes your recollection?
I documented at approximately 12:30 in the morning on January 31st, we arrived at the home to serve the first search warrant.
And you started to tell us, so what's the residence that you arrived at to serve the search warrant?
The residence going to be off the top of my head, ma'am. I don't remember the exact address.
Okay. Was it the Kelly residence?
Correct.
And was that detailed in the search warrant that Detective Ainsa obtained?
Yes, ma'am.
The address was included?
Yes.
And when you arrived at at the Kelly residence, you started to tell us what your task was with respect to serving the search warrant. Could you tell us what your role was that day?
Yes, so like I was mentioning, I was given the task of searching. So I assisted in searching the whole residence to include the kitchen, the living room, the common areas, the bedrooms, bathrooms, all the areas that were inside the residence.
Could you tell the jury first, we've already heard some of this a little bit, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but can you tell me, are there different roles that people play when they're serving search warrants?
Yes.
Could you tell the jury just basically what those are?
Yeah, so obviously we have a searcher, we have a scriber. That person is tasked to write down everything that's been collected and where it's being collected from, also the time it's collected. We have somebody that's physically collecting the items. We have someone that's photographing the items. It's being collected, and post it's collected. So yeah, those are some of the responsibilities.
All right. And is there a way that you document which rooms you're in for the photographs?
Yeah, so each room is labeled with a letter placard, and we'll tape the letter placard at the front door or wherever it's visible, and then we'll write down what is it. For example, A will be kitchen, B will be living room, C bedroom, so on and so forth.
And are those just examples for this case? Those aren't the actual letters for the
Correct.
rooms in this case, are they?
Yeah, they're examples.
Okay. Now, before you started searching the residence, at some point that night, did you have contact with Deputy Rafael Lopez?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you tell me, did Deputy Lopez turn over some items of evidence to you.
Yes, ma'am.
What items of evidence did he turn over to you?
He turned over a handgun, a magazine, a cell phone, and a pocket knife with a leather pouch.
And was that cell phone AT&T Alcatel cell phone model 4052R?
Yes,
And did you mark that as item 12JA?
yes,
And the handgun he turned over, was that a .40 caliber Glock handgun? That was eventually item 11JA.
yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 75. Could you take a look inside the bag and see if you recognize it without taking it out?
Do you have, Ms. Hunley,
Yes, sir.
do you have gloves?
Oh, sorry. And if you need scissors, are there scissors here? I'll find you a pair of scissors.
Is it okay if I stand up?
Please don't take the items out of the bag, though. Just look inside.
It's double bagged, so I'm going to open the additional bag.
Okay.
I recognize that.
And what do those items appear to be?
These are the items that were handed to me by Deputy Lopez.
And what is it specifically?
Oh, it's a handgun. It's a holster and magazine for the handgun.
And Your Honor, the state moves for admission of State's Exhibit 75, which has been marked as item 11JA.
No objection.
75 is admitted.
And Your Honor, could the witness publish this to the jury?
Yes.
So, Detective Barba, could you please take the handgun out, make sure it's safe, and then if you wouldn't mind coming down in front of the jury and just displaying it slowly so each of the jurors can get a good look?
It's okay to take it out?
Yes. Could you make sure it's safe before
Yes.
you
Yes,
did?
It's zip tied and the sign is locked to the back of the safe.
Okay, thank you. And if you could hold it in a way that they could actually see it, maybe with a different part of your hand. There you go. And if you could move a little closer to the jury and just walk past them so they can all get a good look. Thank you, Detective. Could you put that back in the bag? I've put another exhibit on the witness stand. Could you take a look at item number 76 and see if you recognize that? And if you need to open it to get a better look, feel
Yeah,
free.
can I open it?
Yes, please.
I recognize this as well.
And is that what you marked as item 12JA?
Yes, this is the cell phone.
And is that the item you received from Deputy Lopez that he advised you he received from the defendant?
Correct.
Your Honor, move for admission of State's Exhibit 76.
No objection.
76 is admitted.
And did you receive these items from Deputy Lopez after you'd received the search warrant and after you arrived at the Kelly residence?
Yes.
Now, in the morning hours, at some point after you finished your search of the residence that night, did you return back home that night?
Yes.
Did you serve another search warrant the next day?
Yes.
And do you know what time you served that second search warrant?
I would have to refresh my recollection with the report.
Please do.
We served it at approximately 1:15 in the afternoon.
And when you served that second search warrant, what was your role in the second search warrant?
I had the same role.
So you were also a finder or a searcher?
Correct.
Who was in charge of packaging that evidence and putting it all into evidence?
We packaged it as a team. We have a conference room inside our criminal investigations division that's isolated to our access only. And so it was myself, it was Detective Ainsa, it was Sergeant Flores.
So you all packaged it together, photographed it together, and put it in evidence
Correct.
as a team?
Correct.
Do you know who the photographer was that day?
Detective Ainsa.
Now, after you finished that second search warrant, were you tasked with notification of next of kin?
Yes.
Could you tell the jury what that task is?
So we have to notify the immediate family member, usually the wife of the decedent. At this point, we had figured out that the decedent was a foreign national. So I contacted the Mexican consulate for their assistance in trying to locate the decedent's family.
Did they, within a couple of days, get back to you with contact info?
Yes.
And based on that contact info, at some point were you able to make contact with the victim's family?
So not me. The consulate had advised me that they had contacted the victim's family and they had notified them.
Oh, so they made notification for you?
Correct.
Okay. And then subsequent to that, did you actually meet with the victim's daughters?
Yes.
Was that on February 15th, 2023 in Nogales, Sonora?
Yes, that's correct.
At some point during the investigation, were you tasked with reviewing some video surveillance that was obtained from Border Patrol?
Yes.
Do you remember how many of those videos you reviewed?
I reviewed 3 separate videos.
And can you tell me, were you involved with obtaining that surveillance video?
Yes.
When did you make the initial request to Border Patrol for the video?
The initial request had to be within that same week. The exact day I would also have to recollect my...
Please refer to your report. Detective, do you know how many supplements you have in this case?
I have 22 supplements in this case.
Okay, so go ahead and please tell us what the date was on this.
It was on January 31st.
So you initially made the request on January 31st?
Correct.
Did you have to follow up with a formal request for that surveillance video?
Correct, and that follow-up was on February 6th.
Do you know when that video came in, if you know?
I don't know.
But you know it did because you reviewed part of it, is that right?
Yep.
Now, I just want to go back to your notification to the Mexican consulate. Did you advise them of the nature of the case and that sort of information?
Yes,
So they were fully aware of the details?
correct.
And I skipped over something. Did you also attend the autopsy in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Who was lead at the autopsy?
Detective Ainsa.
And were there photographs taken during the autopsy as well?
Yes,
And who took those photos?
Detective Ainsa.
At some point, were you tasked with interviewing Border Patrol agents in this case?
Yes,
And can you tell me, were the Border Patrol agents you were tasked with interviewing those officers that were involved in the Kelly case?
yes,
Did you interview an agent Dugan?
yes,
Did you do that on February 7th of 23?
yes,
And did you interview an agent named Leyugan?
correct.
And did you do that on February 14th of 2023?
Yes,
At some point, were you contacted by Border Patrol, actually on February 8th of 2023, were you contacted by Border Patrol that they had encountered an individual who was a potential witness in the case?
yes.
And what was this individual's name?
His name was Ramon Felix Gonzalez.
And did you interview this individual?
Yes,
Did he provide you a statement?
yes,
Did you audio and video record that statement?
yes,
Do you recall the time and date that you audio and video recorded the statement?
yes. The time or the date was February 8th, 2023, and the time was at 10 in the evening, 2200 hours.
10 in the evening is when you arrived or when you recorded
When I
the?
recorded, I received the call at 9 in the evening, and I arrived at 10. The initial report had a mistake. I documented the time wrong. However, I then I noticed the discrepancy, and I fixed it in an additional report.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor? Showing you supplement number 29, States Exhibit 1.29. Could you take a look at that and see if it refreshes your recollection with respect to the times?
Correct. Documented, I arrived at the Sonora Border Patrol headquarters at approximately 10 in the evening.
So was your recording after that then?
Correct.
Thank you. During that interview, did you receive some contact information for
Yes.
the victim or for
Yes.
the individual? Did you attempt to make contact with that individual on other occasions after this interview?
Yes, on multiple occasions.
And were you able to make contact with this individual ever again after this initial interview?
Not with the individual. I confirmed that the contact information he provided was correct. When he provided the contact information to me, he told me that was for a Rosa, which he identified
Objection,
as his.
hearsay.
Abstain.
Did you, when you obtained the information, when you made contact with the individual on the information, were you able to ascertain whether they were related to the defendant?
Yes,
Based on this initial contact with this individual, did you make a recommendation regarding charges related to this individual?
Yes,
And were charges added for this individual?
yes.
And what charges were added?
Aggravated assault.
And was this individual a suspect or a victim of that aggravated assault?
A victim.
After you weren't able to make contact with this individual, what happened with those aggravated assault charges related to Ramon Felix Gonzalez?
They were dropped.
Now, after you met up with this individual on February 8th of 2023, did you meet up with another individual who indicated they were a victim and a witness to the crime?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
That was Daniel Ramirez.
And what date did you meet with Daniel Ramirez?
I believe it was February 13th, 2023. February 15th.
And just for the record, I'm showing you what's been marked as States Exhibit 1.23, is that correct?
Correct.
And did that refresh your recollection?
Yes, ma'am.
And the date of that interview
February 15th.
of 2023?
Correct.
And can you tell us, without telling us what Daniel said to you that day, can you tell us how that interview came about?
Yes, so Sheriff Hathaway had contacted the next of kin. Next of kin was able to provide him with Daniel's information, and he organized the interview or the meeting.
Sheriff Hathaway organized the interview.
Correct.
And did Sheriff Hathaway ask you to accompany him to this interview?
Yes.
And did you do so?
Yes.
And during this interview, was part of the interview recorded?
Yes.
And can you tell me who else was present that day when Daniel came to meet with you initially?
Gabriel's two daughters were present, and also a family member by the name of Juan Carlos was present.
On March 13th of 2023, did you obtain a search warrant, in this case for some cell phones?
Yes.
Which cell phones did you obtain search warrants for?
I obtained a search warrant for the decedent's Gabriel's cell phone, also for Mr. Kelly's cell phone, and the third cell phone was for Miss Kelly's cell phone.
And we've already admitted Exhibit 76, which is the cell phone for Mr. Kelly, is that right?
Correct.
And then you said two other cell phones, a cell phone for Wanda Kelly and one for the victim, Gabriel Quinn Butimea, is that right?
Correct.
I placed in front of you Exhibit 77. Can you tell me, do you recognize that item?
Yes.
And what is that item?
This is Mrs. Kelly's cell phone.
And did you mark that item as 13JA?
Yes.
Move for admission of States Exhibit 77.
No objection.
77's admitted.
And I also put in front of you Exhibit 81. Could you take a look at that one? And if you need to open it, go ahead.
This is the victim's Mr. Whitty's cell phone.
And did you mark that item as 16.3 JA?
Correct.
And once you obtained the search warrant for these 3 cell phones, what did you do with these 3 cell phones?
I delivered them to FBI Special Agent Douglas in Tucson, Arizona, who assisted me with the forensic download on the cell phones.
And why did you involve the FBI and Agent Douglas in these downloads?
That was per the county attorney's recommendation.
Okay. Did they have an expertise y'all didn't have at that point?
Yes,
And was that in a program called Celebrate?
that's correct.
And did Agent Douglas assist with attempting extractions using the Celebrate software?
Yes, ma'am.
And did Agent Douglas provide you with those Celebrate extractions on May 4th of 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you submit them into evidence as item number 5MB?
Yes.
Now, after you spoke with Agent Douglas, did he make a recommendation to you without telling us what that recommendation was?
Yes.
After he made that recommendation, did you obtain another search warrant?
Yes.
And what was this search warrant for?
Was for a physical review of Mr. Kelly's cell phone.
And can you explain to the jury what that means and why you did that?
So a physical review is essentially that, me physically opening up Mr. Kelly's cell phone and going through the contents to include pictures, call logs, text messages, anything that would be inside his cell phone. The reason why I did that was because in the previous search warrant I had generated, the language in that search warrant was specific for a forensic review. Once I received the return from Special Agent Douglas and his recommendation, I determined that I couldn't go into his phone because of the language on the first warrant was specific for a forensic review. So I felt like Mr. Kelly still had that expectation of privacy on his cell phone, and I didn't want to violate his rights. So that's why I decided to generate another search warrant with the language specific for a physical review and see if probable cause still existed, which it did because it was granted.
And did you obtain that, I guess that would be the third search warrant for this phone on June 13th of 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you complete the physical examination of item 12JA, Exhibit 76, on June 14th of 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you complete the return for that search warrant on June 15th of 2023?
Yes.
Your Honor, could we have a second on the headset?
So while she's doing that, let me tell you why we use these things. This is new and pretty new, and courts started to use them more during the pandemic. In the absence of these, what we used to do, courts did for years and years and years, is called a bench conference. This is the bench. So whenever we had to have these conversations, everyone would come up here, we'd cluster all around here, we'd huddle up here, we'd whisper so you couldn't hear us, the jurors couldn't hear us. The court reporter had to lean in and make sure she heard. We're all potentially breathing and coughing all over each other. It wasn't a good, even without COVID or any of that, it wasn't a good situation. They all had to come up here and everything. So this is you can hear really great on these things, and it's just a much more efficient way of doing this, takes less time, and it's a better way of doing it because you can hear better. But that's what we call bench conferences. And again, those are just legal matters. It's nothing factual about the case. Those are just legal matters that the judge has to decide, and that's why they're generally not shared with you. Not to mention the fact that older judges like myself get a little hard of hearing, so it's a better way for me to hear what's going on. Doesn't look like any of you are hearing aid age yet, no? You seem to be hearing all right, huh? Oh, you wear them? Good. You hearing okay? Both ears? Good. Where'd you get them? No, I'm just kidding. We'll talk with them. How much you pay? We'll talk afterwards. Okay. All right. What? Special, yeah. All right. I was thinking of Costco, but. All right. I have my own little speaker up here, so just so I can.
Detective, could you please take a look at State's Exhibit 61?
I'm going to be watching you, juror number 2. If I see you turn something off, then we're going to. Oh, you got them on?
Have you reviewed Exhibit 61?
Yes, ma'am.
Does Exhibit 61 contain text messages you obtained during the physical download of Mr. Kelly's cell phone?
Yes, they're pictures of the text messages that I took of Mr. Kelly's cell phone.
And do they appear to be accurate pictures of the text messages you took on Mr. Kelly's cell phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, move for admission of State's Exhibit 61.
And I'm going to object based on foundation as to who makes the statements that are contained in text messages. I don't think this witness has that foundation.
Your Honor, these are text messages on Mr. Kelly's cell phone. We don't have to establish who they're to and from.
Well, I assume they're being offered to prove the statements that the defendant made.
That's correct.
And
We do have-
obviously, there's another person who's a recipient of the messages, but they're not offered to prove what that person said or might have responded to. Is that?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And you were going to say something else?
I was going to say the next exhibit is also the photographs of the person's phone number and name from the contact list. So I was going to admit that as well, but
The objection's overruled, and was it 61?
61, yes, Your
61's
Honor.
admitted.
Could you also take a look at, and can you explain to the jury what you mean by photographs of the text messages, just so we're clear on what you did during your physical examination?
Yeah, so I went into Mr. Kelly's phone, his message inbox. He had multiple messages from different recipients. I opened up each individual thread from a specific recipient, and I took a photo with my department issue camera of the message that was received and then the message that was sent out. And that was the same process that was going with each thread of message that he had.
And so just as explain my ruling, because there's a limiting instruction, text messages, obviously a conversation between two or more persons, right? But this is being offered and received and can be considered by you as to what the defendant is alleged to have said in these messages. What these other people are saying or not saying is not offered to prove the truth of what they're saying. I don't know who they are or what they're saying, but it's not important except to give context to the conversation that you're going to hear or that are in these messages. So the other people just give context to the discussion, what the subject matter is, but it's not offered to prove the truth of what they're saying, whatever they said. They're being offered solely for the truth of what, or the statements that the defendant made in these messages. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you take a look at State's Exhibit 62, which is also on the bench in front of you? It's just the contact, the pictures of the contact, and the call log. And then 63 is just the summary that I returned that was with the redaction. With the redactions. No, I'll show you. I'll get it for you. Before I display it.
We're ready.
Do you recognize State's Exhibit 62?
Yes.
Could you tell the jury what State's Exhibit 62 is?
It's a combination of the call log, pictures of the call log from Mr. Kelly's phone, to include the contact list, the name that he has them under, and then the phone number.
So when you say call log, what do you mean by call log?
The incoming and the outgoing calls that were produced, that were logged down on his history.
So just a list with what calls were coming in and what calls were going out?
Correct.
And then you also said contact information. Tell us what the contact information is.
So they're the numbers that are saved on his phone, on his contact list.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay.
So it's the name and the phone number saved in the contact list?
Correct.
And did you open each of those up and take a picture of the name and number?
Correct.
And is that what's contained in 62?
Yes.
Move for admission of State's Exhibit 62.
Objection, foundation.
Overall, 62 is admitted.
In front of you now is State's Exhibit 63. Were you asked by the state to review a summary of those text messages and to ascertain if they were accurately depicted in that summary?
Yes,
And did you look through your text messages to make sure the summary was accurate?
correct.
And is State's Exhibit 63 that summary, and is it accurate to the text messages that are in front of you in Exhibit 61?
Yes,
Your Honor, move for admission for demonstrative purposes only of Exhibit 63.
Foundation.
I see that. All right, this is for demonstrative purposes.
Yes, Judge, it's just hard to show each of those. We've already admitted the text messages. This is just for ease of the jury of viewing this.
Well, again, it's, if it's for demonstrative purposes, it can be used but not admitted.
Yes.
So the objection's overruled, but it's not being offered for purposes of admission.
Detective, I'm showing you State's Exhibit 63. Sorry, I have a soft voice. Can everyone hear me? And Detective, is this an accurate summary of the text messages that were on Mr. Kelly's phone?
yes, ma'am.
There are some text messages on January 27th of 2023 and January 28th of 2023 with Border Patrol Agent Morcell, is that right?
That's correct.
And I see that there are initials here, GK, is that George Kelly?
Yes,
And JM, is that Jeremy Morcell?
that's correct.
And then again, on January 25th of 2023, are there text messages between Mr. Kelly and Mr. Morcell?
Yes,
Same for January 18th?
correct.
Same for January 17th?
Yep,
Same for January 16th?
correct.
Same for January, and January 14th, 2023, is that between Mr. Kelly and Gary Wisdom?
That's correct.
January 13th, 2023, is that between Mr. Kelly and Mr. Morcell?
Yes,
And then January 13th, 2023, between Mr. Kelly and an individual named Gary Miller?
that's correct.
And then January 13th, again, between Mr. Kelly and Mr. Miller?
Yep,
Text message January 13th between Mr. Kelly and Matt Kelly.
that's correct.
And then a January 23rd, 2022 between Mr. Kelly and Mr. Miller again. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. And I want to go into the details of some of these text messages. Starting first with the text messages with Agent Morcell, did those text messages talk about cuts to the fence and folks who, migrants or individuals who may have been near Mr. Kelly's property that Agent Morcell was letting him know about?
Yes,
And then I want to talk specifically about the January 13th, 2023 text at 5:56 with Agent Morcell. Do you see that text message stream?
yes, the last one on that picture.
And did Agent Morcell notify him of a potential group of 23 individuals on that day near his property?
That's correct.
And also a group of 6?
That's correct.
And did Agent Morcell advise him that he thought some of them may have had narcotics?
Yes,
And did Mr. Kelly respond, "Okay, thanks, LNL, comprende"?
yes,
And can you tell us what comprende means in Spanish?
I understand.
Do you does it, with a question mark, does it mean do you understand?
Correct.
And so can you tell the jury what the acronym LNL stands for?
Based on the conversation, I believe the L and L stands for locked and loaded.
And what does locked and loaded mean?
That he has a weapon that's one in the chamber,
He had a weapon that what?
that's ready to be fired.
Ready to be fired.
I'm going to object to that last one on speculation, Your Honor.
Your Honor, this agent knows what the acronym, or this officer knows what the acronym L&L stands for. I think he's entitled to offer that information.
I think the objection goes to the weight and not the admissibility, so the objection is overruled.
Thank you. And how
Again,
did,
the witness is not a party to the conversation, so, but he's giving his opinion based upon his experience in the context of the conversation about what that means. So that's what that evidence is about.
and how did Agent Morcell respond to Mr. Kelly that day?
He wrote a message back that said entiendo.
And what does that mean in English?
I understand.
And I'd like next to talk about the text message between Mr. Kelly and Mr. Wisdom on January 14th of 2023. Do you see that text message?
Repeat the date one more time.
January 14th, Gary Wisdom and Mr. Kelly?
I see it.
And did Mr. Kelly say to Mr. Wisdom, 29 illegals caught here this week might have cut fence. I am checking now, looking for cows.
Correct.
And then did Mr. Kelly say he found 2 cows?
Correct.
On January 13th of 2023 at 6:58, did Mr. Kelly have a text exchange with Mr. Miller?
Yes.
And did Mr. Kelly say, overrun with drug cartel, AK getting a lot of work? See attachment from Border Patrol.
That's correct.
And then at 7:21 on January 13th, did Mr. Kelly say, pick of drug runner, carpet tracks, 33 dealt with this week, AK hot, exclamation point.
That's correct.
And then on January 13th, 2023, at 7:35 p.m., did Mr. Kelly text Matt Kelly?
Yes.
And did Mr. Kelly say in this text message, 33 drug runners this week, pic attached is of drug runners carpet booties, AK-47 hot, want to be back up?
Yes.
And how did Mr. Matt Kelly respond?
He responded by saying nope. There was a hand emoji attached to that, which was a thumbs down hand. And then he added to that, be careful.
And then did Mr. Kelly respond with, careful is not an option. It is either fight or run, and I'm too old to run. Mom is L&L also.
That's correct.
And again, L&L in this context,
Is locked and loaded.
locked and loaded. And then the final text message on November 23rd of 2022, is that between Mr. Kelly and Gary Miller?
That's correct.
And does Mr. Miller ask, what are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Yes.
And then Mr. Kelly responded, patrolling the border for you northerners.
That's correct.
Did Mr. Miller then respond, shoot straight?
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly responded, or shoot many rounds?
That's correct.
Your Honor, can we please have that bag removed in front of the witness like we can't see him? Thank you very much.
Why don't you put it on the floor, because now I don't think the jurors can see you. Or maybe, let's just return it to the clerk, perhaps,
Can I approach?
if, with the court's permission.
So, sure.
On June 14th of 2023, did you attempt something called a geofence warrant?
Yes.
And could you just tell us very briefly what a geofence warrant is?
Yes, to my investigation, a geofence warrant is a virtual perimeter on real land and attempt to locating mobile devices.
And what was the purpose of doing a geofence warrant?
We were aware that there were multiple migrants in the group, and we were trying to identify anybody else that could have been a witness to the incident.
Were you also doing the geofence warrant to attempt to locate if there were any other potential suspects?
That's correct.
And what area did you do the geofence warrant?
So the perimeter that was searched within the geofence, we used Gabriel's, where his body was located, as the middle point of the radius, and then I did a 150-meter radius surrounding that, which embarked up to Mr. Kelly's residence, and then south near the border.
And when you initially attempted that geofence warrant on June 14th of 2023, what was the result?
The first warrant was denied by the courts.
Did you do a second request for a geofence warrant to the same judge?
That's correct.
And was that warrant granted?
Yes.
And who was served with the geofence warrant?
Google.
Did you, at some point subsequent to the granting of the geofence warrant, get a response from Google?
Yes.
And what did they ask you to do?
My pronunciation is going to be wrong, I apologize, but it's to anatomize the language on the warrant.
Do you mean anonymize?
Correct.
So to make the cell phone owners anonymous on the warrant?
Correct.
Okay. And so tell me about that.
So essentially at that point, the warrant was rejected by Google. I did the return on that warrant. I received additional help from the FBI. They provided me with the proper language on how to serve the warrant to Google. I did a third search warrant, and that was also served to Google.
So you amended it to include the language to anonymize, is that right?
Yep.
And then was that warrant served on Google?
Yes.
And what was the result of that warrant?
The warrant was successful, and no cell phones or items were located within the geofence perimeter that I requested.
And without telling us what Agent Douglas told you about that, did you learn what the possibilities for that why that could have returned that way?
Yes.
And we've already heard from Agent Douglas about that, so we're not going to ask you about it. I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 28. Could you tell us what that document is?
This is the amended return for the search warrant, which with the response from Google.
And is that the response we just discussed a minute ago?
Correct.
I want to turn now to some work you did with respect to the victim's clothing in this case. Were you tasked with swabbing the victim's jacket in this case for testing by RJ Lee Group?
Correct.
Had you ever done that before?
No.
Did you seek some assistance with that?
Yes,
And did you do that on June 28th of 2023?
that's correct.
Can you help me find it? I thought I had it on that list, but I don't. Can you tell the jury who assisted you on June 28th, 2023 with obtaining those samples?
Yes, Arizona Department of Public Safety forensic scientist Aaron Brudenell assisted me
Where did you do those samples?
at the laboratory of the Arizona Department of Public Safety in Tucson, Arizona.
So did you go to you went up to the lab?
Correct.
And were the samples already there at the lab, or did you bring them with you?
They were already at the lab.
And did you use a test kit provided by RJ Lee Group?
Yes.
Where did you get the test group kit from RJ Lee Group?
Scientist Brudenell provided it to me.
Showing you what's been marked as States Exhibit 130. Could you take a look at that, please?
Can I open this up?
Yes, please. Do you recognize it from the exterior before you open it?
Yes.
And how do you recognize it?
This is the box that was sent back to me from RGD Group. The packaging.
Okay. Do you recognize the items inside?
Yes.
And could you tell the jury how you prepared the samples and what your procedure was and who was watching while you did that?
So I arrived at the DPS laboratory. Forensic scientist Brudenell was waiting for me. The items that was going to be tested were submitted to DPS evidence. So since I don't have a login information with the agency, he assisted in logging the items out. Once the items were logged out, then we proceeded to take out the jacket that Gabriel was wearing, the shirt that he was wearing underneath the jacket, and his pants. And those were the 3 items that were tested. After I had identified the items that we were going to be testing, I got this kit that was sent to us from RG Lee Group. I opened the kit open. It had 6 vials inside the kit. However, one of the vials was broken during transport, so I had to dispose of that vial. After I disposed of that vial, I then opened up on my first good vial and left that open for the air to collect. And I did that for that to collect anything that's in the air that could contaminate what I was going to be testing. So that was labeled as vial CB, the collection blank.
Let me stop you there for a second. So that did not have any swabs on it. You just opened it so that the air could collect in there?
Correct.
And did Aaron Brudenell explain to you why you were doing that?
Yes.
And what was the reason for that?
So if there was anything in the air that could contaminate the items I was going to be testing, that vial could collect it, and we can identify or notice that everything else that was going to be collected was going to be contaminated as well.
Okay, and what did you do after you opened the collection blank?
I left it open in the immediate area where I was collecting the other samples.
Okay, and then how many samples did you collect?
4 samples.
And tell us what those were that you collected.
So I collected two samples on the jacket because it was the biggest item. One vial was for the front portion of the jacket, and the another vial was for the back portion of the jacket.
So
And
when you
then-
say the front and back portion, where did you collect them from?
So the front portion would be this. The front part of the body I collected, it was just random tapping all over. From the bottom to the top, all over the arms, underneath the armpit and the side areas on both sides. And the same thing happened to the rear.
And then what did you do? So that was 2 samples then?
For the jacket, that's correct.
Okay, and then what other samples did you collect?
And then the third sample was from the shirt that Gabriel, the victim, was wearing underneath. Since I only had a limited amount of vials available to me, I did the front and the back with 1 vial, and I did the same thing with the pants.
And you did that at forensic scientist Brunel's direction?
Correct.
What did you do when you completed your sample collection?
I put the vials back inside this kit, I sealed it, and I submitted it into our evidence department, who then shipped it off to our G League group.
Did you discover there was an error when you initially sealed and packaged that?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the error?
I had labeled this evidence item as 7MB. However, I had forgotten that 7MB was already being used for another piece of evidence, so I had to relabel it as 8MB.
And that other item that was 7MB, what was that item?
I believe that was an interview.
So would that have been a CD?
Correct.
So it's not like you could have mixed it up, is that fair to say?
Correct.
But you discovered it was an error, so you corrected it.
Correct.
At some point, did you receive the item back in evidence?
Yes.
Or item back from RJ Lee?
Correct.
And when did you receive it back?
I would have to refresh my recollection on the date.
What's been marked as State's Exhibit 1.80. Let me know when you refresh your recollection.
On July 31st, I received the package back from RJ Lee Group.
And what did you do with the item when you received it back?
I submitted into evidence.
And Your Honor, I think we've already admitted this into evidence, but I'd move for admission of State's Exhibit 130, which is the test kit. I think there may have been a foundation stipulation.
I think it was admitted already.
It's been admitted,
Thank you.
according to the clerk.
Detective, on July 7th of 2023, did you participate with expert witness Rick Wyant in some testing?
Yes.
And what was your, How did you assist with that?
I assisted on logging out some evidence item numbers for his examination as an expert.
And did you sign out the AK-47, which has been admitted as Exhibit 101, item number 21JA?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you also sign out item number 5JA, which has been partially admitted as Exhibit 135?
Yes.
After the expert witness had completed his testing, did you photograph some of the items?
Yes.
Could you explain to the jury what items you photographed?
The expert used 3 poster boards to do his examination. At the completion of his examination, I took the poster boards under my custody for evidence, and I photographed the poster boards just for transparency, just to have 2 items of the same thing.
May I approach your honor?
And common practice in our agency to photograph.
I'm showing you what's been marked as State Exhibit 136. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
And what is that item?
The photographs of the poster boards the expert used, and then the paper bag contains the spent casings that were used at the examination.
Okay. And those spent casings, how did those get marked into evidence?
They get marked as 12 MB.
And are those the spent casings that were used by the expert during the examination?
That's correct.
Your Honor, move for admission of State's Exhibit 136.
I think there's a report attached to that. I don't object to the photographs being admitted. I thought I saw a report attached to it.
I don't think so.
Okay. Otherwise, no objection to the
I don't
photographs.
think there's a report.
Just the photos?
It's just the photos. Yeah, you're welcome to look at it, but
No
all
objection.
right, 136 is admitted.
Now, subsequent to that testing with expert Rick Wyatt, did you assist with a search warrant, another search warrant at the Kelly residence?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that search warrant?
The purpose was to use the metal detectors in the
Okay.
surroundings.
Okay, well, we can get back to that in a minute. But I was actually talking about a later search warrant where you collected a tree.
Okay.
Did you participate in the collection of the tree sample?
Yes.
And we've heard about that tree collection from another witness, but could you tell us, do you know how that tree collection came about?
Yes, Sergeant Bunting identified a tree stub that could have been hit by a projectile, and we collected that as evidence to test for gunshot residue.
And did you do that on August 2nd of 2023?
Yes,
And what was your participation in the collection of the tree sample?
I cut the piece of tree.
And I just want to verify that we've already admitted the tree. I think we did, but I just want to make sure. Exhibit 137 and 137.1, are those already admitted? Yes. Thank you. At some point, did you meet with the family of victim Gabriel Quinn Butimea to talk to them about a caller named Miguel.
Yes.
Could you tell us about that?
Yes, during the interview we had with Daniel in Mexico, I took advantage of that time to ask them if they had a Miguel in their family, to which the daughters and the uncle that was present told me that there was no Miguel in their family.
Did the state also interview an individual named Juan Miguel Armenta Morioki?
Yes,
And did you participate in that interview?
I was present.
Was that Juan Miguel also asked if he was the 911 caller in this case?
Yes,
And how did he respond?
that he was not.
And was this individual a relative at all of the Quen Butimea family?
No.
So let's go back to the search warrants where you assisted with the metal detecting. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Which search warrants were you present for?
I was present for all the search warrants.
So there was a search warrant on January 31st of 2023 with metal detectors, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you remember what areas you used the metal detector on that date?
I was present, but I didn't participate in the metal detector.
So you were inside helping with the other search warrant?
Correct.
Okay, February 1st of 2023, did you participate in that search warrant with the metal detectors?
Correct.
And what did you do on that occasion? Do you recall?
Yes, I was doing physical inspections of the, there's a gated area that's towards the side southeast of Mr. Kelly's residence.
Are you talking about the area we've been referring to as the paddock between the two fence lines?
Correct.
Okay, and what did you do in the paddock area?
I was doing physical inspections.
What do you mean by physical inspection?
Looking for projectiles, for spent casings.
So just walking the paddock and looking with your naked eye?
Correct.
And did you go out on a third occasion with metal detectors to that location?
Yes.
And was that in March?
Yes.
Do you recall what areas you metal detected or looked at on that occasion?
I don't recall.
Was it other areas of the Kelly property?
Yes.
On all of the occasions you were on the Kelly property, did you ever find a backpack?
No.
Did you ever find a rifle that was not in the Kelly residence?
No.
Did you participate in the second search warrant in the collection of the AK-47?
I was present.
Detective, was the AK-47 and the magazine at some point separately packaged, if you're aware?
I don't recall.
Would you recognize the magazine from the AK-47 if you saw it?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Now, when you examined the jacket and you were doing the swabbing of the jacket, did you see the puncture holes in the jacket at any point?
Yes.
Did you see the one from the entry wound and the one from the exit wound?
Yes. Not on the jacket, on the shirt.
Okay. You don't recall seeing them on the jacket?
Yes, on both.
Okay, on both.
Yes.
And did you at any point ever examine the backpack?
No,
So that would have been a different detective?
correct. And just to make sure I'm understanding you, is this when I was at DPS collecting for RG Lee Group?
At any point, did you ever examine the backpack?
No. I remember seeing the backpack, but I didn't examine it.
Thank you. Would that have been Detective Ainsa who made the decisions about what items of evidence were going to the lab?
I believe so.
Your Honor, I don't have any additional questions for this witness at this time.
All right, I think we'll take our afternoon recess. We're going to take our afternoon recess a little early, but that's all right. Just to give you some idea about what the schedule is going forward with the court, the state, the prosecution believes, I think I've told you this already, but it's still true, the prosecution believes that it will, what we call finish its case in chief this week, maybe tomorrow. Remember, there's always a case in chief that the state has, and then the defense has the right to present a defense, and then if the defense presents a defense and the state has rebuttal, then they can come back and have a rebuttal case. Remember that a defendant never needs to produce any evidence. The state must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt based on the evidence, and the defendant is not required to produce evidence of any kind. So the state believes that they're going to finish their case in chief probably maybe tomorrow morning, or if not then, soon thereafter. Tomorrow's Thursday. We're going to have court in the morning, just the way we always do. Thursday afternoon, we are going to have a site visit, and we're going to go have a site visit at the Kelly Ranch with all the jurors. Now, I'm going to go into a lot more detail about that later. I'm just trying to tell you right now what the projected schedule of the case is. So we'll go all day today. We'll be in court tomorrow morning until the noon recess. After the noon recess, we're going to go out to the Kelly residence. That'll be about 1:30, and that should consume the rest of Thursday. And we finish that site visit, and again, we're going to have a lot more discussions about that. When we finish that site visit, we'll come back here, and you'll just probably be recessed for the day because, it'll probably be too late to start any more testimony. And then we'll come back Friday, and if the state hasn't finished its case, then we'll hear additional evidence. There may be questions that arise from the jurors that arise as a result of that site visit to the Kelly residence. If there are questions about that, we're not going to do it at the Kelly residence. We're going to come back into court and resume in court Friday morning and see what we can do about answering those questions. So then we'll go on Friday. If the state rests, then again, the defense has a right to present a case. Remember, this defendant has no burden to produce evidence of any kind. The state must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt the state must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt based upon the evidence. And if the defendant decides not to produce any evidence, that's no evidence of guilt whatsoever. But then if the defense does wish to present evidence, then chances are we will begin that process on Friday. And of course, we'd recess for the weekend and come back and continue the trial on Tuesday. All that being said, everything appears to be going pretty much on schedule. That's just to give you some idea of the schedule for the rest of the week. All right? Very well. Remember the admonition of the court. Do not talk among yourselves. Do not do any independent research. Don't talk to anybody else. Stay away from all the news media, social media, and all of that, and don't blog or communicate with anyone else about your participation as jurors in this case, except you can tell them what the projected schedule is. We'll discuss all this in more detail, say either this afternoon or tomorrow morning concerning the site visit, so you'll know exactly what to expect and what the rules are. All right, with that having been said, we're going to recess for the lunch hour. We'll resume at 1:30, and we're in recess. Thank you.
Please rise, por favor.